This session covers the presidency, the length of a term, the month we vote, who becomes president if the president or vice president can no longer serve, the president's powers, and what the cabinet does. Question: we elect a president for how many years? The accepted answer is 4. President serves 4 years per term. 1 presidential term equals 4 years. Question: in what month do we vote for president? The accepted answer is November. Vote for president in November. Presidential elections are in November. Question: if the president can no longer serve, who becomes president? The accepted answer is the vice president. If the president can't serve, the vice president steps up next. The vice president is next in line. Question: if both the president and the vice president can no longer serve, who becomes president? The accepted answer is the Speaker of the House. Second in line after the vice president is the Speaker of the House, a 2-step chain from 2008. The Speaker of the House is second in line. This 2-step chain is a 2008 bank question. Drill Q30 and Q31 as a pair. Question: who is the Commander-in-Chief of the military? The accepted answer is the President. Commander-in-Chief of the military equals the President. Question: who signs bills to become laws? The accepted answer is the President. The President signs bills into law. Congress writes bills, the President signs them into law. Question: who vetoes bills? The accepted answer is the President. The President vetoes bills. A veto is a no. Veto equals the President says no to a bill. Question: what does the President's cabinet do? The accepted answer is advises the President. The cabinet advises the President. 1 verb covers it. The cabinet gives advice to the President. 1 verb, advises. Question: what are 2 cabinet-level positions? The accepted answer is Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Education, Secretary of Energy, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Secretary of the Interior, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of State, Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Attorney General, Vice President. 2 cabinet posts, easy pair. Secretary of State and Attorney General. 2008 list includes Secretary of Defense. Name any 2. Easy pair, Secretary of State plus Attorney General. Note: this 2008 list says Secretary of Defense. The 2025 bank's differently worded longer list is not valid here. 2 traps to watch. First, if the president cannot serve, the vice president becomes president. The Speaker of the House is second in line, only if both the president and vice president cannot serve. Drill Q30 and Q31 as a pair. Second, this bank's cabinet list uses the wording Secretary of Defense. Do not substitute any other phrasing. Summary: the president is elected for 4 years, and we vote in November. If the president can no longer serve, the vice president becomes president. If both cannot serve, the Speaker of the House is next. The president is commander-in-chief, signs bills into law, and can veto bills. The cabinet advises the president. You should be able to name 2 cabinet-level positions. Quick self-check before we drill the cards. Without looking, try to answer this in your head. If the president can no longer serve, who becomes president? Picture your answer, then the cards will confirm it. If it came easily, great. If not, that is exactly what to watch for. Let us lock it in.